Tim.
Hi, Doug.
Hello, Tim. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
John. Todd. Hey, how you doing? Welcome.
So we're good then?
We're
Got our
good.
quorum.
We need to swear in Mr. Price tonight.
Okay. All right.
Just gotta swear.
I got swear words.
Okay.
Specialized in this for me.
All right. Well, then I'll call to order the September 29th Design Review Board for the Village of Plain City. Do you want to do the swearing in now, or you want to do roll call?
Do you want
Yeah. If anyone is intending to give testimony or evidence before the board tonight, if you could stand and raise your right hand so I can administer the oath. Okay. You swear that the testimony, if any, that you're prepared to give tonight will be true and accurate to the best of your knowledge on penalties of perjury? I do. Okay. Thank you.
I think you
We swear
need to
Mr.
swear
Price
him
as
in.
well.
I think you was talking about swearing in our new member.
I'm new.
Oh, I'm sorry. I get to swear twice.
But you took care of that already.
Yeah, I get sworn at a lot when I go home, so it's
Right.
okay. I do not have this precisely written down, but
Okay.
I've heard the oath many, many times, right? And you're a Notre Dame fan apparently, so I'll be absolved of any missteps in administering. Okay, could you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear and affirm that you will uphold the offices of a design review board committee member to the best of your ability, in compliance with applicable Ohio law and the code of this jurisdiction?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, perfect.
Roll call.
Yep.
Mr. Boyer,
Here?
Mr. Rucker,
Here.
Ms. Iman, Mr. Byram, Mr. Cron,
Here.
Mr. Price,
Here.
Mr. Dawson.
Here.
All right. Next thing is just our approval of the meetings from the August 25th meeting. I will entertain a motion for the approval of those minutes.
Motion to approve minutes.
All right, do I have a second?
I second it.
Okay, any comments or corrections? If not, Taylor?
Mr. Boyer,
Yes.
Mr. Rucker,
Yes.
Mr. Dawson,
Yes.
Mr. Cron,
Yes.
Mr. Price.
Abstain. Wasn't here.
Perfect. Okay, Taylor, anything from communications, from planning and zoning?
Sure, I just want to welcome Mr. Price to the design review board. We currently now have a full committee. All 7 seats are filled. Just want to report on a couple things that you'll see going on in the Uptown. The parking lot behind Lovejoy's building is currently being worked on for public parking, as well as the streetscape project is kind of going on at the same time. So pardon our mess during that time, but great things are going to be happening and that'll look pristine here in the next few months. And with that, that's all I have for tonight.
Awesome. Any public comment, or are they all focused on applications,
I believe they're all for the first application.
specific applications? Okay, all right. Then let's just jump into the new business starting with the application for 127 West Main Street. Do you want to swear in the applicant, Nat? Do we want to do that again? Or are we good?
I don't believe that's necessary.
We're good?
No,
Okay.
I think we all understand that it's Mr. Medici that is the applicant, he's been sworn, so I can see him back behind the podium, so I think that's sufficient.
Okay, perfect. All right. Taylor, if you want to run us through or give us a summary of the application.
Sure, so for this application for 127 West Main Street, tonight we're looking at a certificate of appropriateness to allow for the installation of a wheelchair ramp and railing. The applicant is proposing to install a concrete wheelchair ramp to accommodate ADA access to the building. The ramp will be accessible from the west, which faces towards the alley, with a step to the east side, closest to North Chillicothe. In order to determine all building codes are satisfied, the applicant is going to continue working with administration. The applicant proposed the railing to the turn radius for the ramp to kind of go into the public alley. So right-of-way permits will need to be established and further steps to clarify that all that taken care of will be done administratively. The board tonight is asked to review the design aesthetic and character of the ramp and railing. All building and zoning codes will be verified in permitting phases to come. So like I mentioned, that ramp is proposed to be concrete with a black steel railing to include spindles on the north side of the ramp closest to the street. And on the building side, it's a handrail only. The conceptuals were included in the packet tonight. In there, I ran through all of the criteria that is in the review of the design review board. And with that, we, as staff, recommended approval with the following condition. That the applicant must file adequate permits and receive approval for encroachment of the ramp into the public right-of-way. That's all I have.
All right, perfect. If the applicant wants to speak to anything in the packet?
Well, you've all been through this before, with the exception of you. We have reviewed it, we've talked about it. On this, I added what Mr. Rucker had suggested, a front view of the building. I cut out a CAD view of the railing and I superimposed it on the front of the building, and that's in the packet. I also included the building department approval. I know that was one of the questions during the last meeting, was that there was some concern among some of you that it did or didn't satisfy ADA standards, and so I included that in there. And I had worked with both Nathan and also with the West Jefferson Building Department to come up with those drawings. And being on any building, it's never perfect, but this is the best we could come up with, and it'll greatly enhance the accessibility to the building. And I don't know, I guess, does anyone have any questions for me?
Taylor, do we have a public speaker for this application?
We do.
You
Ms.
do.
Brill, did you want to provide us?
Yeah, we'll have her go before we give our comments.
So I'm Jenny Brill. I'm the person that's inside that office there. It says Rummel Brill Insurance Agency. For some of you that might not know, our agency's been in effect since 1948 when my dad started it. As a result of that, we have quite an aged clientele that tries to come in, and we do have a lot of walk-in traffic. Those folks, as they try to make that step, it is very precarious for many of them. The step, I don't know if you've been up to see it or not. I haven't measured it. You probably know exactly.
It's 7 1/4.
But it's high enough so that those that are not stable on their feet struggle a lot. And then the second thing there is that without a handrail or anything, there's just single plate glass right there, and I've always been very concerned that they would lose balance, go through the glass, and then that would just be a terrible ordeal for everyone involved. So, especially in lieu of the business that I'm in, it's kind of important for me. I recognize things that might happen that would affect the safety of folks and might cause public issues and so forth. So as an insurance agent, it's a definite liability issue, and I've been doing this for 43 years, so I see a lot of those types of things, and it's just an overall assessment of the situation. But today I did ask employees what they recollect, and we could recollect 3 different instances within the last 3 years where a lady lost her balance and actually did fall, and others that tripped as they're coming in. We do try to make accommodations, so if people call us, we'll come out to the street, accept the payment or exchange papers, whatever needs to be done, and go back in. But it would definitely be much more safe for clientele as they're trying to access the building if we were able to have a ramp. Thank you.
Thank you.
I mean, I think the impact on the historical value of that building is minimal when you, I mean, for this ramp. I mean, I would rather see this than have somebody fall through a plate glass window, honestly.
Well, I don't think there's anyone that would want that, that's for sure. Mr. Medici, is it possible that the ramp can start earlier so that way it doesn't go so far into the alley from your doorway? Because you have a 4-foot entryway there. Can it start earlier so that way you can reduce the length of the ramp?
No, it cannot. That is actually, the slope that it's at is actually the exception. If it were to be the more gentle slope that's preferred by ADA, it would be 2 or 3 feet longer.
Yeah.
So that's the absolute minimum length that it can be.
I'm asking from the start of your door, there's 4 feet there before you even get to the sidewalk, is what I'm saying, that entryway. Can it be lowered coming out of your doorway?
Actually, we talked about this in the last meeting. That's a structural steel and reinforced concrete beam, and directly behind it, all the floor joists are anchored to it. So in order to lower that or start the ramp earlier, you would be cutting into a structural member that holds the front of the building together. In addition to the fact that that front of the building behind that little wood that you see on there, it's actually marble. And my intention is to take that wood off and expose the original marble. So that would impact the historical value for one, but it also, there's no physical way that you could cut through that beam to start the ramp earlier.
I saw that there's some concrete repair work that has been done to the front of that. So where is that beam that you're talking about that's on the front of the building that's structural in that location?
Well, that was the repair to the structural beam. That concrete that you saw, the patch, was a patch. That's how I know that there's reinforced concrete in there. I'm not sure whether, again, that might be a building department issue, but if you started that slope earlier, I'm not sure, but you may have to have a flat landing and then start the slope again also. So I'm not sure it would buy you a whole lot. And on the drawing, if you look closely at the drawing, I actually, due to the angle there, I actually started the ramp 3 or 4 inches up towards, to try to get it as far away from the alley as I could without impacting the 5-foot turnaround. If you look at that hand drawing there, if you actually look at where that line is drawn on the right-hand side, you see how it's past the corner by just a hair? I tried to get it absolutely as far, the vertical line there on the right side of the circle. You see how it doesn't line up with the corner of the building? I tried to get the ramp as far away from the alley as possible. And actually the entire ramp is not in the alley. It's all entirely in the front of the building. And it's just the turnaround space after you get off of the ramp is the only thing that's in the alley. And since the alley is now closed, and there are going to be parking spaces across there and bollards, and there'll never be traffic in there again, that's what makes it possible to actually put this ramp in now.
Is that why Mr. Cahill approved this?
Well, I don't
Actually, he approved it because council told him that we were okay with closing that alley. This was several months ago when we were up there walking the area.
That's a different discussion, but
Right. Right, yeah, we're just here to talk about the design.
Mr. Cron, any thoughts?
I was down there looking at it the other day, and I was talking to some of the men that are gonna be putting the new sidewalk and stuff in. And do I have the understanding the sidewalk will be going across the alley now? And they'll be parking there where the alley is,
Yes.
correct? So,
On street parking in front of the alley where it kind of.
right, I'm not talking about in the alley,
Yes.
but on street, so the sidewalk will be, so if that comes out, even with the building there, there'll be a sidewalk going across there, across where the alley is now, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So there'd be easy access into that ramp.
That's what I understand.
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Price, any thoughts?
No, nothing further.
Okay.
Looks like it makes sense to me. I mean, mechanically, I mean, there's nothing swing wise or anything like that. It doesn't look out of place, and I drove up and down it, and it seems like if it's black and has the spindles on it, like everything else you see up and down that street, it should fit in pretty easy.
Cool.
Motion to approve, or you got?
Yeah, I'm gonna give two thoughts, but
Okay, I'm sorry.
but then
I thought you were going to ask for the motion.
no,
Sorry.
we're ready to go. I think that. I mean, I stated this last time. I don't really have an issue with the design of the ramp as it's proposed, or the railings or any of those things. I think my issue or challenge maybe is a little just opposite of yours, John, which is I do think that the ramp in front of it does alter the kind of character of the storefront, which is the historic part of the historic character of the buildings in this building. I think that I obviously want to support a solution that works for the tenant and that is safe. I think that could probably be done in a lot of different ways versus a full ADA supported solution when there is that opportunity in the rear of the building, which is what in these historic buildings is the first choice, is to minimally impact the character of the building when you support ADA by trying to do it in the rear or some other way that doesn't impact the historic or storefront or face of the building. So that's where I get hung up, not in wanting to provide a safe access or the design of the ramp. I think it's just really, for me, it's the appropriateness of supporting that safety in the ADA at the front, which is the historic character, when there is the opportunity to do it in the rear, and it's already stated that that's where you do it. So, but that's my 2 cents. If Mr. Ricci, if you have any other additional comments or questions, the comments you heard here, we'll let you answer those. Otherwise, I can entertain a motion.
Well, I would like to address what you just said.
Sure.
And I'm just gonna repeat what I said last time. That alley is in such bad condition that I had an employee twist his ankle in the alley so badly that he missed almost 3 weeks of work. Like 2.5, 3 weeks of work. The step up from the road surface onto my property is 3 inches, and it's a vertical. The asphalt is completely missing in the alley. And then in the back, you are a full block height higher than you are in the front of the building, which means your ramp is going to be 25 feet long back there. And if you lower that up against the building, then you're going to have water intrusion issues that are be coming into the building because it will be lower than the parking lot. So even if you could get a wheelchair or somebody who has a walker without falling on the damaged alley, then you're caught with water intrusion issues and other building issues. So it seems like an ideal situation, but the reality is there isn't any customer parking out back at all. All of the village parking is on the other side of the road, so anyone coming across from the village parking is gonna be coming in through the front door. And since nobody's parking out back, that would require them to navigate that alley. And it's just broken up asphalt and trip hazards everywhere, so I think it's really important that we make this as accessible to everybody in the front of the building as possible. And actually, that's what it states in the front of, in the introduction to the guidelines that you guys use, Secretary of the Interior guidelines. I included that in my packet. It says that the goal is maximum accessibility. So moving it to the back of the building does not satisfy that in my view. So.
Will you also be doing this to the Historical Society's storefront, since it also has a step?
Actually, that's irrelevant here, but in answer to your question, the blueprints that the village has and part of that streetscape is going to eliminate that. So there will no longer be a step there because it's an in-between height. The grading on the sidewalk was such that it didn't have enough slope, it was too flat. So when they correct the slope on the sidewalk, it goes away. They're gonna pour right to the lip of it and there'll be nothing necessary there.
This is just a tough one. I mean, it really is, because I agree 100% with you, Todd, that it does absolutely change the historic value and
It doesn't have anything to do with the fact that it closes the alley.
no, it has nothing to do with the fact that it closes the alley.
Because that sounds like that's
if we
your
look-
primary concern.
If we look at this
You're
picture-
asking about the turnaround length into the alley. So it sounds to me like that's your primary
Yeah, I
concern.
do want to understand that,
Okay.
first
All right.
off. Yes, absolutely. I'm asking
Okay.
questions.
All right. No, I just wanted to clarify.
Okay. If you look at this picture, it does change the look of the building, and that's
Well,
where I.
so does a patio in front of a restaurant. I mean, so
Well, I think, I guess I would follow up with that, and well, let me ask a question again. So, just for my clarification, so there's no public parking in the rear of the building for this tenant?
None.
So the
Not for
ADA
any
accessible entrance in the rear is for staff or whoever only?
Yes, and actually we discussed that last time. It's the rear entrance to the building drops you off in the middle of the storage area and the kitchen for this business. And they've been there for 38 years and it's always been that way. And HIPAA laws make it illegal for someone to be in there with all of the social security numbers and insurance records. No one can be in there without an employee with them. And Jenny, if I'm wrong, please correct me, but my understanding is that anybody who is back there has to be accompanied. So it can't be a primary entry to the building. And the space just isn't, you can't reorganize it. That's what it does. That's an entry, and as I stated before, the only reason that entry was there was because Jenny's husband couldn't get into the building without some sort of entrance, and that's the only reason that's there, and it's employees only.
Okay, well, I mean, I'm just trying to, I'm trying to form I guess honestly, in my opinion, to form support for us to give my support. And I think what I'm trying to, for me, is to decipher that the issue that you cannot go into the rear because you go into some interior spaces is purely a tenant issue and not a building issue. Whereas the addition of this ramp will affect the building in general. And so whether or not it is the insurance company or it's a different tenant, if this is the ADA accessible only entrance into that space, then that makes it easier for me to say, absolutely, you need that accessibility to the space. So I think that to John, your point of a patio is a tenant-specific thing that we've designated as temporary.
Okay.
I would be happy if part of the motion, this said this was temporary based on this tenant's needs. Because you could still go in the rear, but you don't because of the tenant's layout currently. I mean, I could get behind that as an application or as a motion.
I do have a photograph. I was painting parking lot lines on that, so I do have a photograph showing a very good picture of the condition of that alley. Because then again, I am not in control of that alley. That's a village thing, and then the village's condition of that alley completely eliminates that as an option. If you have an email, or if I can send it to Taylor, she can put it up there, I can send it to you right now.
No, I mean, the alley, I think that's irrelevant to my concern.
But your concern is predicated upon the alley's condition. Because if that were going to be where handicapped people were gonna come in, be it Jenny Brill or any other tenant, that alley has to be repaired so that it is accessible. So your argument doesn't hold unless the alley's fixed, I guess is what I'm.
Isn't that part of the streetscapes to repair the alley, John, that you approved? Or are you gonna leave the alley with potholes in it?
I'm not sure.
It's not.
You don't know?
I'm not
You
sure.
approved a plan
Yep.
of a walking alley without any streetscapes or any approval of any
Without
type of a
a
design?
rendering, yeah.
That's shocking.
Any other comments or thoughts? Otherwise, John, if you're,
No, I do
the
have
motion if
something
you
here
wanna
from
go.
Paul as well. Basically, that if the design review board determines that the ramp or a railing threaten or destroy the historical significance of the building, then the design review board shall contact the state historic preservation officer for consultation and determination if he or she concurs. If they do not concur, then we would determine that the proposed ramp or railing do not threaten and go forward. If they do concur, does concur, then further guidance from them would be obtained by us with respect to exceptions that may be permitted.
Okay,
So, depending on what we,
sure, whatever. Yeah, okay. Gotcha. Okay.
On this, can I ask one more question? On the side of the ramp where you're gonna come out from the building, that will be 7¼ inches tall, 3 feet out, right? Is that will you have brick along there to match the building, or it'll just be concrete to match the sidewalk?
Well, the intention was to have it not stand out, because you guys specifically said you didn't want to have any impact on the building, so we thought just straight concrete would blend in better and you wouldn't see it. I could absolutely put brick along the side, but then I would need to add another 4 inches in width.
Okay.
Because the brick wouldn't support the handrail very well. So I thought that it would just blend in and not be as visible as the same color, but I am open if you want something else there, but I just didn't think it would look very good.
Yeah, it may not look right, just because the only brick that you see on the front of the building is there by the doorway, so probably you're right, is concrete would be better.
Okay, entertain a motion. If there's no further discussion.
motion to approve COA 21-20.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, any other comments, conditions you want to add or suggest? All right,
Mr. Boyer,
no.
Mr. Rucker,
Yes.
Mr. Dawson,
No.
Mr. Cron,
Yes.
Mr. Price.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Thank you very much. Second application, 305 West Main Street. Go ahead, Taylor.
Yeah, so this application is for 305 West Main Street, which is the Plain City Library. They are asking for a certificate of appropriateness to install a ground sign. The proposed ground sign is gonna be located in the newly constructed learning garden in the front of the library. The sign will be roughly 2 foot by 4 foot, mounted to 2 white decorative posts. The sign will be set back from the front edge of the sidewalk 8 feet. The sign is being incorporated into the new landscaping that has been installed. And the applicant has identified the sign colors to be green and white. The green will be matched closely to the Sherwin-Williams Brookwood sash green, which is on the historic building. With that, in the staff report, I ran through the conditions that you guys are to approve. And with that in mind, staff is recommending approval for the certificate of appropriateness as submitted.
All right. Are you gonna speak tonight,
Yes.
or do you need to?
I don't need to.
Okay.
We have questions.
Okay. All right. Then, what are the thoughts of the board? Any thoughts?
Is there any pictures
They're coming up.
I got it here.
I don't remember seeing this one.
It was like at the very tail end.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
So, that's the proposed sign, and then it'll be that, the green and white. The posts are white and, it'll be white vinyl letters on that ropewood green sash, that'll be the background color of the sign.
This is one of those that I thought was kind of odd because they completely changed. I didn't realize that was in the historic area. They completely changed the front of that building and put a gazebo, like a pergola up there and other things landscaping wise. But there was a pergola structure up there. Is that part of this application also?
The pergola is not, and neither is the landscaping plan.
The pergola doesn't need to be approved by DRB?
I would think it would,
I would hope.
yeah. I mean, it's a structure, right?
I mean, we can address it,
Yeah.
it's sort of temporary in nature, and we don't permit them, like, we don't issue a zoning permit for pergolas.
Well.
Oh,
So, that's why staff kind of ruled that way, we don't issue zoning permits for pergolas. They would require building permits if they're over the 200 square feet, but we don't issue anything for pergola. Oh, pardon me, building department you don't issue for pergola?
Pergolas are not regulated in the building code.
Okay.
okay.
Mr. Cron, any thoughts?
It's it's our public library. I think the sign looks great, as long as it meets the code of the city.
All right. Mr. Price, any thoughts?
Yeah, if it meets the colors that were picked out, I mean, it looks fine.
Mr. Dawson?
I think it looks fine. It's harder to tell the size, but as long as it meets the size requirements, then I'm okay with it.
It looks like it's 4 feet across or something, yeah.
Yeah, 4 feet across, 3 feet 2 inches tall. Well, that's to the post, sorry. Any thoughts?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm still noodling on your question about the pergola, honestly. Because to me, I mean, it is a change to the exterior appearance of the building. And I mean, that's basic, whether it's a building permit issue or not, is irrelevant to our purview. You know, we're here to look at design and the appearance of the structure. So, I mean, it probably should come before us.
Taylor, and this sign, the size of it meets the guidelines and everything?
Yes,
Basically?
yep.
Okay,
I have to issue a separate sign permit on it, but it doesn't pose any issues in terms of being in code.
having a monument sign and everything, okay. And it's not internal, it's externally illuminated, which is great. I mean, my first thought was actually that the orientation's a little strange as a vehicular sign. Maybe it should be rotated so you see it as you drive by, but it sits so far back that it's actually not an issue in the way that you kind of, the road kind of turns a little bit right there. I think it sits back, it's not an issue, so. Any issues? Any other thoughts, comments? Otherwise, I entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the library sign.
All right, is there a second? All right, Mr. Rucker, any other thoughts, comments? If not, Taylor, we're ready for the roll.
Mr. Boyer,
Yes.
Mr. Rucker,
Yes.
Mr. Dawson,
Yes.
Mr. Cron,
Yes.
Mr. Price.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Taylor, anything else for discussion this evening?
Is the railing separate from the ramp? Because I was okay with a railing on the ramp. On the ADA ramp, is it separate application or the same?
It was an application for the ramp and the railing.
Oh,
That was-
okay. Okay.
No discussion items, I'm sorry.
Just real briefly, heads up to the board, UPCO, I don't know if you guys have already heard, UPCO is going to be disbanding, so we're working on how we're gonna replace that seat. What might just be a citizen at large, resident at large. Just a FYI for your edification.
Cool.
That's all I got.
Mr. Medici, I like the railing. I thought we were going to vote on it separately. I thought it was very good.
Thank you.
All right, motion for adjournment. All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right, so moved. We're adjourned. Thanks, everybody. Quick and easy.